Hello, and welcome to
Bell on Earth.
My name is Cassidy,
My name is Casey.
and together we are the Bell Sisters. Join us each week as we corrupt your soul,
And bring you to salvation.
discussing life, death, and everything in between.
Are you afraid of getting into heaven?
Ding
dong,
motherfuckers. What's up, internet?
We're back.
Back again.
WW whores.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's on brand for the topic for today.
It
so that
is.
works.
It really is.
Yeah, so topic for today will be the Death of Omegle.
Has everyone heard about this?
Everyone has to have heard about this.
Yeah. Omegle was like one of those websites that was like so foundational to anyone who has grown up on the internet. Whether you're like an 80s kid, a 90s kid, or even like a 2000s kid, everyone used Omegle.
Yeah. And I mean, like, especially recently, too, I feel like I've seen a lot of, like, I guess Gen Zers, even though, like, I know. Are you technically Gen Z? I know I am.
So it usually changes, like,
True.
some
depending who
people
you
say
ask.
that, like, 1997, the year I was born, is, like, the beginning of millennials. I'm sorry, the end of millennials? No. What am I saying?
Well, regardless, we're
Okay.
cusp.
It's usually, like, the end of Gen Z and the beginning of millennial is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, our...
Wait. No. That's not what I'm trying to say. Reverse that. Switch that, flip it in reverse.
Oh, no, not again. Right now, an hour. Every
So-
episode, we now have to botch the Missy Elliott song.
It's
Tradition.
like required now, yeah. But yeah, usually, like, I'm either a very, very young millennial or a very, very old Gen Z.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, regardless, like, we're kind of that, like, cusp age.
Yeah.
We're, like, we're not millennial, but we're not full Gen Z, so we kind of just, like, I think someone came up with some term, but I don't know, and I don't really care that
Zillennial.
much. Sure.
Yeah, because it's like, I don't
really fully relate to either.
say, like, TGIF in real life, but also, I don't, like, I don't even know what fucking Gen Z people do, like, sit on...
They go, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't do that. I don't say nar, like,
Oh,
in real
true.
life either.
I mean, we obviously say and like all the time, but
I think that just comes with the territory of being brain damaged.
this is true. Yeah, that has nothing to do with our age and more the fact that we have like 8 brain cells left.
7 and counting.
The new TLC show. 7 brain cells and counting.
And it just goes down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7 brain cells and decreasing. TLC hit us up.
Is TLC around still?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. They still have the like weird shows.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Oh my god. Now we're not gonna get our brand deal. Since you don't
God, I'm
No,
so
you're up to
sorry.
date. Well, whatever.
I don't chase waterfalls, it's okay.
That was layered. Oh my god.
I know, I'm really sophisticated
That was like
in that way.
the 7th brain cell. That was like
Yeah, just passed away with that thought.
oh my god. It was like what animal I think there's like some like
A cat?
insect or something. No, that like I guess it would just be like whatever, like a bumblebee. It's like the one that like whatever type of bee it is that like as soon as it stings it dies.
Oh, that's like Jerry Seinfeld, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's Jerry Seinfeld.
Well, or no, he didn't sting anyone, but his friend did. I forget who played that guy
Yeah.
in the movie.
What a martyr.
Yeah, he really was. And then they sued.
Yeah. As they fucking should have.
As they should have.
Brilliant
no.
movie.
They sued and then he stung someone.
I haven't seen that movie in a while, actually.
Wow, you should watch it.
We should rewatch it. But yeah, so moving on from
NTY.
Jerry Seinfeld. But yeah, so we're not millennial, we're not Gen Z, we're kind of in the middle, but for both sides of the spectrum, I think Omegle has really impacted our lives, and like the course of the internet, and even in recent times, like I have seen people use Omegle for like videos on TikTok and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
I've never seen that.
Oh my god, absolutely. I've seen like so many, which is super funny to me because of the fact that like we grew up on it just as like 11-year-olds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
chatting
that was, like,
with random people.
That was like what we used to do when we like hung out and had sleepovers and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like they're not friends that I actually contact anymore, but like there are a couple people that like at that time I would talk to them on Kick. Throwback to Kick as well. I know. I just aged
Kick?
myself right there.
Yeah, Jesus.
But yeah, like I had friends from Omegle that I talked to on Kick, so like there's that, you know.
What are you, a millennial?
Yeah, apparently, according to whoever made that up.
I don't know, probably some fucking dumbass on LinkedIn.
I like the assumption of them being on LinkedIn.
I just feel like that's where it would have come from.
True. LinkedIners and their labels, huh? The LinkedIn agenda.
They're really, okay, the more time I spend on LinkedIn, the more I realize there is.
You spend time on LinkedIn. I feel like
Yeah.
LinkedIn is one of those things that like people talk about but don't use. But like apparently people really fucking use it.
Oh no, there's people who like live on LinkedIn.
Like that's insane to me. Like I've never created an account. I've gone on the site maybe twice.
So yeah, before I started working for Free Studio Productions, our
Shout
producers,
out our production company.
But
Shout out Derek.
before I started working with them, I didn't really use it, but now I use it for like we've used it for job postings and stuff like that. And it's
Gotcha.
a really, I don't know, it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there are different types of people, right? There's the
Yeah.
types of people who...
Well, people write articles for LinkedIn, essentially. And, like, they'll just share it, and then they'll be like, wrong. It's the same, it's very much the same thing as, like, any other space on the internet. Where
Gotcha.
people are like, you're wrong in your opinion. Even though, like, that's not how opinions work.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's, like, the point of an opinion.
Yeah.
Is to be your opinion.
And then people would be like, meh, meh, meh. But it's a lot of, like, fighting about, like, if, like, the 3-day weekends or 2-day weekends would be better. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they're fighting about.
Oh my god, if
Or,
that
like,
was my
workplace
problem...
happiness. You know what I mean?
If that
or,
was
like,
my fucking article to write about...
It's, like, sharing... It's, like, very similar to, like, sharing posts on Instagram where people will post, like, be happy, blah, blah. But they'll be like, be happy at work. You know what I mean? It's, like, very much centered around being a professional. And then people will, like, add you, and they'll be trying to, like, sell you, like, marketing.
I would still be shaking ass on LinkedIn.
I mean, you could do that, too.
Posting thirst traps for, like, possible employers.
Honestly, probably a better place to post thirst traps because, like, if you're on LinkedIn, like, you're either looking for employment or are employed, and that just means that you have money.
What? Guess I just took a sip of cranberry juice. What did that mean? I don't understand. What does me posting a thirst trap on LinkedIn have to do with having money?
Well, I'm just saying that people on there are professionals. And that they may have money to send you.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like me. I was like, once I get my bread up, I'm posting ass on LinkedIn, guys.
I mean...
That's how I know I've made
Well,
it.
to be fair, though, if you have money, then you can, like, exfoliate your ass better, right? And, like...
That's true.
With, like, $200 creams and stuff, and then you'll be
Yeah.
better ass.
I mean, I'll just use Facetune for now, I guess.
Yeah, you could do that.
Incredible.
Anyway.
Well, this is kind of a good segue because part of, well, if you didn't already know, Omegle, as we were talking about, has been shut down, and the
R.I.P.
Yeah, fucking R.I.P. But the founder of, I almost said LinkedIn, the founder of
I don't even know
Omegle
the founder of
posted a, what would you call it? A post? Well, not an article.
That's sort of an article. It's like
It's
an
long.
essay.
Yeah, like basically a personal essay about Omegle and their founding of it and what happened and why it's now no longer existing.
We'll definitely be putting a link to it in the show notes so that you could read the full thing because it's honestly incredible.
It'll be linked in the show notes.
Yeah.
Haha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can find that in the show notes, but we'll be reading parts of it as well.
Yeah, because I really enjoyed, well, not that I necessarily enjoyed reading what he had to say, because it made me sad.
Didn't enjoy it.
But I think it was very well written, and I think points that were brought up are very interesting, and like some of the things that I have definitely thought about, but also haven't totally put into words, and also haven't, seen it from the perspective of, like, something like Omegle shutting down.
It's so bizarre to me because, like, just I think what Omegle kind of became and, like, what it was, like, meme-ified as is, like, so different than the way he explains it.
Yeah.
And I guess it's also, like, it's so different from, like, what I would have expected the founder of Omegle to speak like, and, I don't know, I guess I just didn't expect the founder of Omegle to be literate.
Oh my god, I'm sorry, Leaf.
Yeah, and he's actually, like, really smart and very, like, cohesive and very intelligent, just, like, seems very, like, well-read and, very understanding and empathetic, to be honest, and, like, understanding of, like, the world around him and, like, how to connect with people, and that was kind of the whole point of Omegle, was to connect with people of different backgrounds and different educations, different experiences, and different just all sorts of different people from all around the world. Like, that was the whole point of it starting. Yeah. And I just think that's really incredible and really beautiful, and I think it's almost a shame to what it became, like, later on.
Yeah, and we'll get into it as we, like, get more into reading the actual post itself. But, with anything, but especially anything on the internet, and especially anything on the internet that can be anonymous, it's going to be taken over by shitty people, and that just is what it is. But actually, let me just get into the first part that I wanted to read, because this is exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so basically, this is when he is going into the start of Omegle and, like, the actual launch of it. So this is quoted from the post. I launched Omegle when I was 18 years old and still living with my parents. It was meant to build on the things I loved about the internet, while introducing a form of social spontaneity that I felt didn't exist elsewhere. If the internet is a manifestation of the global village, Omegle was meant to be a way of strolling down a street in that village, striking up conversations with the people you ran into along the way. And I love the visualization of the global village and strolling down the path, and, like, this is, like, meeting strangers in that global village. And that, to me, is what the internet is, in, like, a real sense, but also, like, kind of in an idealized world, is that, like, global connection. It's, like, how I can be here and someone else can be on the other side of the world, and we can have that connection without moving from our chair. And I think that's so beautiful and such a unique experience that obviously this is the first time in, like, human history that we've ever really been able to do something like that.
For sure, yeah. It's definitely how I feel about the internet in a lot of ways, where, like, there is so much beauty and connection and positivity that you can find there. And of course there is, as we go through the post, there is some pitfalls and disturbing things, and it can get really, really dark really fast. But I do think that, like, it's pretty crazy and impactful, and I don't think people stop enough to think about it enough. Just thinking about the fact that you can connect with anyone around the world for any purpose. Not even just for connection, but for, for help, for recipes, for entertainment, for just anything. Like, literally anything that you could possibly need is at your fingertips, and it's given to you by another person,
Yes.
And now, of course, maybe it's given by AI, but
that's a whole other episode that we can get into.
That's a whole other thing.
And, obviously Omegle wasn't, like, the start of the internet, but I think Omegle was kind of burst onto the scene in the early stages of, like, real widespread social media. Mm-hmm. And that's what made it so beautiful and unique.
What year it started?
2009.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's, like, the height of YouTube.
Yeah.
Is when Omegle started. And, I mean, it was MySpace. It was the early beginnings of Facebook. And that's really when I think the heyday of the internet was. Like, that was honestly, like, the best part of the internet was when it first started, and everything was just so new and fresh, and things were so cool, and, like, it wasn't so much, like, your entire life.
Oh, yeah,
as
absolutely.
It is now. It was just, like, a part of daily life where you could be, like, on the internet, chat with people, see, like, really funny things, and then, like, kind of just, like, log off and, like, live your, like, life and do whatever you need to do throughout the day.
Yeah. And not that there weren't downfalls in the beginning, too, but I think with literally anything, the bigger it gets, the more problematic it becomes.
Well, also,
and that's just the nature of, like, how humans work.
Exactly.
Eventually it reaches the wrong crowd, the wrong demographic.
I think now part of the issue I find with the internet is that it's all consuming at this point. Like, everything we do, from school to work to home to whatever, is the internet, right? Like, there's not so much separation from it anymore, and you literally can't separate it like from real life.
And, like, you need a smartphone in most situations at this point. Like, even if, not to say that restaurants don't really have menus anymore, but, like, there is an expectation now that, like, you'll just scan a QR code. Yeah. And I know that, like, specific aspect of it came out of COVID specifically, but I think we were already leaning down that path anyway, where, like, we're expected a lot of the times to, like, pay online or, like, go to a certain website and, like, book things online, and, like, to have access to the internet is a necessity.
It's like an extension of, like, yourself and, like, what you can do. Like, you really can't just, like, go up to a box office and ask for tickets anymore. I mean, you can, but it's very unlikely that, like, I don't know, depending on what you're looking for, that you'll get it. Or, like, you can't, I don't know, you really can't do many things without, like, having the internet there. Even if you don't personally have a smartphone, right? Like, even if you do separate yourself personally, like, there's still pieces of the internet all over the place, from advertisements on the street to, like, even just, like, taxis. Like, I mean, taxis don't exist anymore. It's all Ubers, But
even that's, like, part of it, It's like, even something like a taxi doesn't really exist anymore, and you have to, like, find rideshare online.
Mm-hmm. Back to Omegle and, like, what... I just think that this is a really brilliant post, and I'm excited to share more of it.
Yeah. Another part that was mentioned in the beginning was... I'll just quote this part. It became popular almost instantly after launch and grew organically from there, reaching millions of daily users. I believe this had something to do with meeting new people being a basic human need, and with Omegle being one of the best ways to fulfill that need. As the saying goes, if you build a better mousetrap, the world will be a path down to your door. I think that's an important thing to touch upon too, is how the internet has become, like, a social playground. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people and I think this is where, there's like the good and the bad of it. But I think there are a lot of people who struggle to find social connections in person. And whether or not the internet, like, makes it worse for them is debatable. Because I think in some ways, for example, like Omegle, like, you were able to stay put in your own house, but still socialize, meet new people, have, like, foster new connections. On the flip side, do I think certain social media and certain things like this, like, stunt people socially?
Yeah.
Yes, because it now gives you that avenue to only stay inside, only interact with people like this. But I think especially in the beginning, it was a great way for you to meet new people. And the other part of it is that, like, like, depending on where you live, of course, like, maybe if you live in New York City, it's going to be more common for you, but not everyone can step outside and talk to someone from a different culture, can talk to someone, like, in a different language, and Omegle kind of would bridge that gap, where, like, you can literally just click new chat, and it could be someone in Japan, it could be someone in India, it could be someone, like, wherever.
Yeah. And I do think that was really interesting. I think that's really beautiful, the way that he put it specifically. Like, that was the point of creating Omegle, was to connect people with different cultures or different professions, or just people who have different perspectives on life, which is, like, almost like the reason we started this podcast to begin with, right? Like, being able to provide, like, a different viewpoint on life and different, I don't know, like what he was saying, like, you can speak to a professor, you can go up to a student, you can talk to whoever. And I think that is really, really cool. And it's a really, I don't know, beautiful thing to want to give to the world. And I think it's incredible that he made this website at 18 years old with no money and no, like, I don't know, like, he wasn't like a company. It's just like him playing around, like, in his house.
Yeah, I mean, he said he was, like, living with his parents still, like, this was just kind of I mean, do I know him personally? No, but it seems like it's kind of just more like a, like, project that he, like, imposed upon himself.
I think that's pretty incredible, but I also think that with that comes, like, just connections being made between the wrong types of people.
Yeah, and I think here's again, like, the, like, double-sided sword. He goes into how he's a survivor of childhood rape, and because of that, I quote, "I was acutely aware that at any time I interacted with someone in the physical world, I was risking my physical body. The internet gave me refuge from that fear. I was under no illusion that only good people use the internet, but I knew that if I said no to someone online, they couldn't physically reach through the screen and hold a weapon to my head or worse." That is so beautiful in itself, which, again, it just depends on, like, who's using it, like, for what intentions, but it does give you that shield, and anonymity. It gives you that ability to access the outside world, but from the safe haven of your own personal bubble, exactly.
Yeah, and I do think that's what was so unique about Omegle, like, when it first started, when, like, we had used it, was that it's completely anonymous. You can give as much or as little information as you want. I remember, like, using Omegle and just creating narratives and telling people all sorts of stuff.
Yes.
And the other thing is, like he was saying, like, you can just say no. Like, if I want to end the chat, I end the chat. If I want to, stop, then I stop. But, when you're at an event outside, like a bar or a park or whatever, like, you can't, it's so much harder to say no to someone because, like, they're literally right there.
Yeah.
And, like, the only thing you can literally do is run away. Whereas, like, on Omegle, it gave you that opportunity to literally just end the chat and you get to speak to a new person or you get to go to sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
I used Omegle at night. There was no other time of day that you used Omegle, so that's why I say go to sleep.
So, exactly what we're saying, there are a lot of amazing things that come out of it, but then he goes into how there are also lowlights. And to quote, "Virtually every tool can be used for good or for evil. And that is especially true of communication tools due to their innate flexibility. In the next section, I believe in the responsibility of a good Samaritan and to implement reasonable measures to fight crime and other misuse. That is exactly what Omegle did. In addition to the basic safety feature of anonymity, there's also a great deal of moderation behind the scenes, whatever goes into the AI, human moderators, blah, blah, blah. And I do think it is really interesting. There's a lot more to it. I don't know that I'm going to read all of it, but he does go into how they worked with law enforcement and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That was a thing that also intrigued me about this post was I didn't know how much behind the scenes work they did in terms of moderation. No idea. And I think it's obviously, it is what it is. People are going to show penis. And it just happens. That's just how people are. But at the same time, like, there's so much work that they put into it to create the most safe, anonymous space that you could possibly have. And that's
more than you could say for most, if not all, websites.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the only reason that so many websites even have any safeguards at all is just because they want to keep making a profit. Whereas I do feel like, at least from the post, and I'm sure, you know, profit was some type of motivator, but just from, like, the way that he speaks in this post in particular, and also from the whole shutting down of Omegle, just to begin with, it just seems like he was doing things to try to make right of the things that were going wrong on his website, and actually try to help people, and actually try to do good, you know, which I think is very commendable. And of course I can't necessarily confirm or deny that, but that's what I get from that, and I think that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, like we're saying, with anything that gets too big, like, you're gonna have the bad apples that come in and ruin it kind of for the rest of us.
Well, and I think that's, like, the saddest part about Omegle was that truly, like, in the beginning, I don't remember there being that many perverts, to be quite honest. Like, there were, of course, like, when we would go on it as, like, kids and stuff like that, but
you could skip it and just be done with it.
It wasn't, like, that many. Like, it wasn't, like, every single person. Like, that's where it kind of became, like, people stopped using it, and it got overwhelming, because it was literally every single one was just another person with their fucking dick out. Yeah. Whereas, like, in the beginning, a lot of it was, like, kind of, like, people our age, like, kids and stuff like that. And, of course, there were two features. There was video and chat. And on chat, like, you didn't have to deal with that stuff. But on video, you did. But, like, I remember, I forget who it was. I'm sure you might remember or whatever. But there was one comedian that used to do an Omegle section on his, like, live shows, and at some point he had to stop that segment of his show because it was literally just all penises and it wasn't funny.
Yeah. I don't remember who that was, but
yeah, I forget what his name is, but it was some comedian, and, like, he would do it as, like, oh, I'll talk to someone on Omegle, and, like, it'll be really funny, and the audience will, like, get into it and stuff like that, and he just had to stop because it just wasn't funny. Like, it's literally all just penises, and it's, like, kind of boring.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
see, that's, like, kind of the funny thing about, like, our age and how we grew up was that, like, for a lot of people, I'm sure the first, like, penis that they saw was on Omegle.
Yeah, true. Probably.
Is that not, like, obviously that's, like, kind of scary and sad, but is that not also hilarious at the same time?
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
And it also, in some ways, I think this has nothing to do with Omegle. I think, like, Omegle is just the medium for which, like, creepy people decided to express their creepiness.
Yeah.
But, like, I do think it's, like, hilariously sad that there are so many people who get gratification out of sitting in front of a camera with their dick out and just, like, showing it to random people.
But it's also, like, to me, okay, at some point, if every person that you're clicking on is a person with their dick out, then most of the people they're clicking on are people with their dick out.
Yeah.
And so it's like, do you still, like, is that like what
Do you
you're
still
going
get off?
for? Yeah. It reminds me a lot of Ashley Madison. Do you know Ashley Madison?
Yeah. That was the, like, cheating website, right?
Yeah, so it was a website specifically created for people who wanted to have affairs and stuff.
Yeah.
But what happened was that the website became like majority men, and so it was very, very hard for men to find women on the website, because I think the whole thing was that like men had to pay but women could join for free, and there was not enough women on it. So like all these men were paying for it, and there weren't enough women to like actually like go around.
I think that's kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
That, like, women get an account for free and there's still not enough.
Yeah, like, literally. And of course, like, we're not gonna get into the topic of like who cheats more, blah blah blah.
Right.
But I do think that, like, you know, going onto the internet is going to be something that is going to be more male dominated. Like, not to say that it's a difference, but I do think that, like, if typically, like, when women cheat, it's usually with someone that they probably know.
Right.
Already. And that's more of like a socialization thing. Whatever, we're not going to get into it.
Yeah.
But, like, it just reminds me of that, because it's like, these people are going onto a website to do something where they're going to, like, hurt someone else in the process, and they literally can't even do the thing because there's no one there to, like, do it with, right?
Yeah.
And so it reminds me of, like, what happened with Omegle. Like, all these people with their dick out are just, like, they're just finding more people with their dicks out. Like, that's what the website became.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, like, at some point, it's like, is that what you, like, if that's what you want, that's fine. If you want to go onto the website and see a bunch of people with their dick out, that's fine.
Yeah.
While your dick is also out. But it's like,
then at what point is it, like, gratifying anymore?
yeah, exactly. And at what point do you get, like, literally, like, bored with yourself? Like,
Yeah.
how boring of a person do you have to be to sit there on a website in the dark with your fucking penis out? Like, that's just literally lame.
No, for real.
Like,
Like,
and
if
then
you're
watch
gonna...
other people with their penises out.
Yeah. But, like, not for nothing, but, like, if you're gonna, like, have your penis out somewhere, like, I feel like that's when you do it in public. You know, because, like, that's more thrilling. That's more exciting. Mm-hmm. The, like, public, like, humiliation aspect of it, like, I mean, yeah, I understand, like, the anonymity of being online, but, like, do it in the dark outside, you know? You're, like, stand in an alley and, like, flash people. Like, I don't know. At some point, like, I don't understand, like, what is
Like,
so
what are you
appealing
getting
about
from
it.
Yeah. And it's, like, to some degree, I would assume at some point, like, some of these people just did it because, like, I don't know, they probably were just bored.
Yeah.
Or, like, I don't know.
Repressed sexually.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously. I think that's, like, the most obvious part, because who the fuck else would do that?
Yeah, for real. But it's, like, I don't know, like, again, it's just kind of, like, how boring. And how, like, I don't know, sad.
Like,
and,
listen,
like,
Cassidy, not as many people can be as cool and interesting as us.
yeah, that's
So
true.
let's, you know, we have bias here.
Yeah, we definitely do have some bias. But it's like, I barely leave my house now, but, like, I have no, like, desire to, like, be, like, cunt out on the internet, you know what I mean? Like,
Maybe titties out, but not cunt out.
yeah.
But anyway, so he kind of goes into talking about how, like, moderation, you know, both AI, human,
Which I
yada
do think
yada.
is pretty incredible that they, like, literally caught people with the
Yeah.
help of Omegle. And I think it's incredible that, like, so many people were behind the scenes actually doing that work.
Yes.
When, like, at the same time, like we were saying before, you have this memification of Omegle as the dick website, right?
Yeah.
And literally going congruent with that is this behind the scenes work that people are doing to try to create a better world, which I think is pretty incredible.
Yeah, and the next part of the post goes into a really important point of how the concept of, like, fighting crime is a never-ending thing, because you literally cannot cure crime.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to happen, and that's why what he kind of talks about in the next part of like the backlash of Omegle itself really makes me so sad, because it does seem like they did quite a lot to, again, like fight whatever they had to, like content wise, that was going on the website. And like what is the line? You know, like what is the line between what's acceptable and what's not? Because especially from what he's saying in the post, it seems like there's nothing that they could do to make people happy.
Yeah.
Which, that's the problem with anything on the internet.
Especially, well, I think that's, again, where it comes from, like, how do I put this? So, I think that's where the end of the heyday comes in, right?
Yeah.
Like, of course, there was, like, kind of a lull period on the internet, but there was, like, the heyday of, like, when we were on the internet, and there was, like, Tumblr and YouTube, and there was, like...
the birth of new social media.
Yeah, and it was so fun and cool, and everything was really interesting and exciting. And then for a little while, there was kind of, like, a lull, and, like, you know... like, I would put kind of, like, the Instagram, Musical.ly, all of that stuff kind of in that, like, lull period. Not that it was necessarily bad, but it was just kind of, like, you know, things are coming out, but everyone's kind of already been on the internet. You do have, like, a new generation coming onto the internet, but, you know, things are kind of, like, coming out, but it's not anything crazy. And then... you have, like, the hit of TikTok, and that kind of spikes things again. There's something new, interesting. It's something that people really haven't seen before, interacted with before. And then you have, like, I would say, like, a little bit before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hits, and everyone goes fucking insane. And everything gets fucking stupid and boring and dumb and lame. And now the internet is just a cesspool of people screaming at each other and trying to be, like, the most, like, correct person.
Yeah.
And it's so dumb.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, not to sound like fucking conservative media, but, like, the growth of the idea of, like, political correctness really has destroyed a lot of what the internet originally was.
Fake news. But also, like, I would say there's political correctness, but then there's also just, like, this idea that your opinion matters above all else. And, like... it's fine. Like, that's kind of the point of the internet, right? Is to share your opinion, share your creativity, and share, like, different things. But now, like, the whole idea behind it is to attack before you even know what you're attacking, right? Like, I've seen so many creators on TikTok right now being, like, mass reported. And it's because, like, people have no idea what they're actually talking about. Don't sit through any of their videos. Just hate them because... they're, like, pushing an agenda that they don't know anything about. And it's like, this creator's not even pushing an agenda. They're literally just existing on the internet and doing nothing wrong. Like,
well, that's the thing, is that, like, we've now reached that threshold of, like, we used to be people and have profiles on the internet. And now I feel like we're almost becoming, like, the profile on the internet. And then, like, you're also a person.
like, on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the scary thing, is that, like, a lot of the stuff that you come across on the internet, especially now that we're just so inundated with content, like, constantly, like, there's no way... like, if you're scrolling on Instagram, you're gonna go through, like, hundreds of posts within whatever a half-hour time frame. Mm-hmm. You know, like, there's
thousands in a half hour.
I guess depending on how long the content it is. But it is true. Like, you're gonna go through so many... like, there's no way that anyone, me, you, anyone, is going to, like, check the context of anything you come across.
Right.
And that's the problem, is that, like, we have come to a point where, like, people almost, like, don't want to.
Right. Well, I think it's, like, they don't want to check the context because there's just too much. Like, there's too much of it. And, like, of course, like, as a sociologist, like, intersectional, like, being intersectional is really important. But, like, to some degree, you kind of have to take a step back and be like, okay, like, I'm just going to not engage with this
Yeah.
at all because I don't understand it. And like I go through so many posts and it's like literally anyone says anything and all of a sudden everyone's an expert in the comments. And it's like you can't possibly know every single thing about every single thing on the entire planet. Yeah. Like you go onto like a dog trainer's post and like every single person's like, that's not right. Your dog looks scared. Your dog looks this. Your dog is that. You're a horrible person. You should kill yourself. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or like you go onto like a person who cooks food for their fucking kids and everyone's like, that looks unhealthy and there's red 40 in that and blah 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 blah. And it's like,
dude, even just
so
recently
dumb.
There was this like post because I'll interact. I hate that this has become my algorithm, but like especially since I've been going to the gym more, like I interact with the gym content, and so there's a lot of like gym talk on my feed, and it is so fucking annoying because not only like some of the posts are fine, like some of them are annoying, whatever, but like the comment section is always a toxic cesspool. And on all of them for sure, but like mainly on any like woman's post. Yeah. And there was this one interaction I had in particular that like still kind of makes me laugh in a very like sad way. But it was this girl, like of course she's in her regular like gym outfit. So it's kind of revealing, but whatever, like, whatever makes you feel confident, that was not my problem. She was showing you how to, like, do some exercise with some certain form. And I went into the comments, which was my first mistake, but whatever. Yeah. But there was this one comment from this guy ridiculing her and being like, you shouldn't trust, like, a stranger on the internet wearing, like, scantily clad outfits or whatever, and then goes on to tell how you should properly do this exercise. Meanwhile, this dude is, like, he doesn't have a profile picture. He has a private account. He has, like, a random bio. And I'm like, so you think that I'm going to trust you, this private account that I have no idea, like, who you are, what qualifications you have. Not to say that, like, this girl is, like, I can, like, fact check her qualifications per se, because she did say that she had whatever certification, but, like, I'm not gonna, like, fucking call up the head of whatever and, like, confirm this. Yeah, but regardless, like, at least she has, like, a public profile. And it's, like, that's just what these comments are full of. Yeah. Of these people that probably have less qualification than this girl in the video. Literally. Thinking that they know more. And, like, now just the entire comment section is just full of hatred. Yeah. And it's so sad and, like...
It's dumb.
It's so stupid.
Yeah. And, yeah, everyone's a fucking expert, but then literally in the same breath, they'll be like, not everyone's a fucking expert. And it's like, you're literally just being a hypocrite without even thinking about it. Yeah. Like, there's no thought process behind any of these fucking comments or half the time any of these posts either. Yeah. And, like, the other thing that I have a problem with now is that, like, everyone wants to make content on, like, all these different things, and it's like, but you have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah. And it's, like, so weird. And, like, the internet used to not be like that. It used to just be, like, cool, and you could Google all of that stuff and read, like, articles from people who do know what they're talking about. And, like, of course there was, like, blogs and, like, I don't know, like, things like NPR, I guess, or whatever. But, like, you know, you would go to, like, the Washington Post or, like, things like that, and you would read about, like, you know, the news or what's happening. And not to say that they aren't biased or anything like that, but they are getting sources that are, like, more credible than just some, like, random person on the internet. And it's almost like another double-edged sword here, because to some degree, it is really important to have people who are, like, on the ground or, like, in places or doing things, like, physically being there and filming them, right? Like, or people who know truly what they are talking about, and, like, having experts at the touch of your fingertips. Like, that's really cool. And it's very, very cool that people can share all sorts of different content from all over the place. But it's also really irritating at the same time, and it's just too much. It's too much. And the other thing is that, like, in the beginning of the internet, you could go onto YouTube and search things. Like, you weren't just being shown it constantly by, like, scrolling so easily. You had to actually search for it and, like, do a little bit of work to actually find the things that you were looking for. Yeah. Whether it was just entertainment or if it was something more educational or whatever. And it would also be more long form, and you had to sit there, and you didn't necessarily have time to leave, like, a 3-second comment and then go on to the next thing. Whereas now everything happens so fast and so quickly and so easily. You have access to, like, tell these people how much you hate them. Yeah. And it's so weird. And, like, again, it'll be on the most bizarre post of someone who's literally at the gym or making food for their kids or, I don't know, like, taking a walk and, like, filming it. And it's so, so weird. And now, on top of that, not only do you have, like, all this hatred in the comments, but you can also, like, stitch their content and make your own video about how much you hate them or how much they're wrong or how stupid they are and how little they know about this. And it's like, dude, so like, what else do you have? Like, go do something else. Yeah. And, like, not to be like, oh, go touch grass, but also, like, go touch fucking grass.
Most people really should just go outside and touch grass. Like, it's one of those comments that is so overused now, but at the same time, it does hold a lot of truth. Yeah. Because we, as a society, are, like, so overstimulated.
Yes.
Like, so severely over. And, like, in some ways, like, I can't blame individuals because I think we're all, like, victims in a sense. Mm-hmm. However, like, we need to, that's, like, what you're saying is exactly why the Omegle situation, like, makes me so sad because of the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
And it's like this, yeah, of course there are fucking downfalls to it. There's downfalls to everything. But, like, it's such a simple concept. And for something like this to be attacked just makes me sad, and I think it also is going to set a precedent. Yeah. And I don't like that.
No, I don't like that either. Like, to attack an entire website to the point where they literally just shut down is insane, and it's deplorable.
And he talks about, like, how hard they fought for it, and at some point it just became too much. Mm-hmm. There was another section that I really... Okay, so this definitely relates to what we're saying.
Yeah, he puts it in a really, really, I don't know, detailed fashion. I really like the way he states what he says.
Yeah, so there's, like, 3 paragraphs that I feel like need to be read. Out of respect to him, to Leaf, like, I really want to read these. So, he goes... Omegle is a direct target of these attacks, but their ultimate victim is you. All of you out there who would have used Omegle to improve your lives, the lives of others. When they say Omegle shouldn't exist, they are really saying that you shouldn't be allowed to use it, that you shouldn't be allowed to meet random new people online. That idea is anathema to the ideals I cherish, specifically to the bedrock principle of a free society that, when restrictions are imposed to prevent crime, the burden of those restrictions must not be targeted at innocent victims or potential victims of crime. Consider the idea that society ought to force women to dress modestly in order to prevent rape. One counter-argument is that rapists don't really target women based on their clothing, but a more powerful counter-argument is that, irrespective of what rapists do, women's rights should remain intact. If society robs women of their rights to bodily autonomy and self-expression based on the actions of rapists, even if it does so with the best intentions in the world, then society is practically doing the work of rapists for them. Fear can be a valuable tool, guiding us away from danger. However, fear can also be a mental cage that keeps us from all the things that make life worth living. Individuals and families must be allowed to strike the right balance for themselves, based on their own unique circumstances and needs. A world of mandatory fear is a world ruled by fear, a dark place indeed. And I love the way he put that. Yeah. I love the way that he, mentions, like, again, like he was talking about before too, like, crime is going to happen, like, bad things are going to happen. However, when you don't properly address the issue and, like, don't create the proper boundaries, then, like, the victims remain the victims. You're not really, like, solving anything.
Yeah.
You're just taking away the rights of the victims to do the things that they shouldn't have been targeted doing in the first place.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's why, like, Omegle shutting down makes me so sad, because maybe we should have, like, researched that part more. But at the same time, like, I don't know how, just, like, coming across anonymous dicks and stuff like that, like, how is that so fucking detrimental that you have to, like, shut down the whole site?
Yeah. Because it's like, again, exactly what he was saying. Like, you're just taking away the rights of people to communicate with other people on the internet because of, like, people doing bad things.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you know, I think Omegle is a very interesting case in terms of, while it does create a very easy playground for people to show their dicks on the internet, right? And so it can kind of be like one of those things where it's very easy to target, but it just becomes a case of who's next and how much are we going to allow fear to really dictate what we do with our lives. And I see that quite often on so many different posts where people are like, well, there's all these bad things that could happen. Why do you even do this? And, like, again, it's like on so many different types of content, so many different types of people. And it's like, if you're going to let fear, like, ruin your life, then, like, what's the point of you in living? Just, at that point, just end it all. Like, what's the point? What's the point of, like, being alive if you're not going to do anything?
Well, I think, like, this has been a rise in general about what they call, like, the whataboutism, where, like, you can't say anything without someone else being like, well, what about this? What about that? And it's like, yeah, fucking what about it? What about it? Like...
And what about it?
Yeah, and what fucking about it? Like, there's always going to be nuance to everything, and, like, that is just how the world is. You know, and, like, I don't honestly think that's something that we should be afraid of.
No.
I think that's almost the point of life, is the, like, unexpectedness and the fact that, like, it could lead to anything.
Yeah, and I mean, the world is chaotic. The universe is chaotic. That's how it is. And if that's what's going to stop you from living, then just don't live at all. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. You're not going to stop it. You can't
leave the
control
club,
it.
bitch.
Yeah. And there's so much unpredictability, and it does make it quite easy when you can just target, like, one thing and say, like, well, this thing is bad, and so we have to fight against this thing, and we can fight this one singular thing and say, like, Omegle, we can shut that down. We can do it. We can solve everything by shutting down Omegle. And it's like...
The thing is, it doesn't solve anything.
Yeah, it just makes it very... I don't know, it makes it very simplified.
Yeah.
You know? Like, again, there's so much nuance, and I think we should be allowed to experience that and make that choice for ourselves instead of having it controlled by someone else.
Exactly. And that's where that balance of fighting crime and preventing crime kind of go hand in hand, because, like, crime is always going to happen, and I think it's important, once it does happen, to do something about it. But then there's also the flip side of it of, like, we're going to put things in place to minimize either, like, the crime actually from happening or the impact of the crime itself.
Right.
And I think with anything, like, if you have a good balance of those two, sometimes that's all you can do. You know? Like, I don't really want to bring up any, like, political topics, so...
No, fucking bring it up. No, because that's the whole message behind, like, ACAB, right?
I mean more just, like, that we're gonna go into fucking, like, rabbit holes with it.
Yeah, fair enough. But that's the whole kind of, like, point behind ACAB, and that's, like, again, it's very similar to what we're talking about here, right? Like, people are like, well, if you shut down the police, then who's gonna catch the rapists, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, instead of, like, caring about the after, like, think about the before. Instead of, well, how do we catch rapists? It's like, well, how do we prevent them from becoming rapists? Yeah. How can we teach people to care about each other and to not rape other people and not want to rape other people? And there can be, you know, studies and programs, and we can focus our efforts onto preventing it from happening instead of allowing it to happen and then caring about what's going to happen afterwards.
And then acting like the fucking superhero when you, like, clean up a mess that's already been made.
Right. Instead of just preventing the mess to begin with.
Exactly.
And, like...
And again, balance is needed. Like, things are going to happen regardless. But, like,
Yeah.
there needs to be more emphasis on the prevention part.
And it's also, like what you're saying here as well, like, crime is going to happen, but it really depends on what you talk about as crime, right? Like, the more that you criminalize things, the more crime that's going to happen. The more laws you put onto things, the more laws that are going to be broken. But we can also, instead of just criminalizing everything and putting a law to it, create programs, create community care centers, create a better, healthier, more loving, caring environment in which people are raised so that they don't become sick and twisted and criminal individuals.
Exactly.
Right? We can kind of allow people to, grow up in a healthier way, and then that won't bring about that crime to begin with. And then we don't have to criminalize things because, of course, certain things are still going to happen, but they're going to happen a lot less.
Yeah.
And we can still have, like, some type of system where we do catch people who do things, even though they may have all of these things in place, right? Like, there's still things that are going to slip through the cracks and things that are going to happen, but you won't have to have as much of it, and you won't have to send more money to that, right? Like, you can send money and effort and resources to prevention and to providing people with resources, because most crime is committed in terms of not having, like, the resources to survive.
Yeah.
And also education and stuff like that. You can put more effort into that stuff and not have to worry about crime. And it's very similar in Omegle's case. Like, look at how much effort they were putting into catching people and moderating things. And that's beautiful. That's amazing. Like, that's more of what we should be doing instead of just shutting down websites in order to then move people to another website to show their dicks on.
Yeah, but that's exactly what, like, I was gonna say too, is, like, to shut down a website where people are obviously, like, using it as an outlet for their whatever, I'm just gonna call it, like, repressed sexual needs, they're still gonna fucking have them. Mm-hmm. Like, Omegle was just the medium that they used. Like, these people now, again, I'm not trying to, like, defend these people whatsoever, but, like, I would rather them show their dicks on Omegle versus go out and, like, do something to an actual human being in public.
Yeah.
And obviously, again, like, what we're talking about, the ideal would be to send them to fucking therapy or whatever they need, or I don't know.
Or have had them raised better to begin with.
Exactly. There's so many different situations.
Or maybe not better, but just, like, allow them to not have that need of trying to, like, gratify themselves with other people's, like, terror and hurt.
Right, exactly. Because, like, obviously, they're getting off on the fact that, like, people don't have a choice whether or not they see their dick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so another part of what he was talking about was... Okay, so I'm just going to read this next part. I like how he's worded it. I've done my best to weather these attacks with the interests of Omegle's users and the broader principle in mind. If something as simple as meeting random new people is forbidden, what's next? That is far and away removed from anything that could be considered a reasonable compromise of the principle I outlined. Analogies are a limited tool, but a physical world analogy might be shutting down Central Park because crime occurs there, or perhaps more provocatively, destroying the universe because it contains evil. Side note, I think that was really funny of him to say. A healthy, free society cannot endure when we are collectively afraid of each other to this extent. Just take a second to sit with that.
I kind of want to let Leaf have the last word.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm going to reread that last sentence. A healthy, free society cannot endure when we are collectively afraid of each other to this extent.
Yeah, I think that's a great place.
Thank you, Leaf.
Thank you, Leaf. And
Thank you,
R.I.P Omegle.
Yeah. So there it is, the death of Omegle, the beginning of the end, as some may feel.
It does feel like the beginning of the end, huh?
It does. So, not that we're going to allow people to show dicks on our podcast. However, I hope that this is a space for everyone listening to have free thought, I guess, and to be exposed to new concepts and ideas and things that they wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise.
Yeah.
And maybe we are like the penises of Omegle, where we force it upon you.
Yeah.
Whether you
we really
choose
are the
to.
penises of Omegle.
Is that merch?
That's merch right there.
We are the penises of Omegle. But no Crime Stoppers could stop us.
No.
We will reign free.
Free the penis.
Free the penis. And with that,
bye. Thank you for listening to Bell on Earth, the podcast. We hope that your minds have been expanded and your pussies have been opened.
Be sure to rate and follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music.
This podcast is brought to you by Free Studio Productions. It's hosted and produced by Cassidy and Casey Bell. Big thanks to our executive producer, Dark Benton.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for all of your content needs. See you later, haters.